unless it comes bursting out of you in spite of everything. Don't do it. Unless it comes unasked out of your heart and your mind and your gut. Don't do it. Unless it comes out of your soul like a rocket. Unless being still would drive you to madness or suicide or murder. Don't do it. Unless the sun inside you that burns your gut. Don't do it. When it is truly time, and if you have been chosen, it will do it by itself. And it will keep on doing it until you die or it dies in you. There is no other way, and there never was. Those are words from the late, great, drunk Mr. Charles Bukowski. I say that to set the tone for who I'm here for, who I am. And so those of you who are not fitting, you can flittle away and go where you belong. First, I'm going to redefine, because I've already defined it here before, but redefine who masters are, so I can maintain clarity for those of you who are listening to me. Masters literally cannot live without bringing forth the work they were born for. Geniuses and normal people and greats can. Let me distinct this even further. Masters either eventually kill themselves or many times come to the door of suicide and consider it seriously before deciding to give their whole selves over to the work that they were born to do. Masters often very much struggle in silence, looking for, before they walk through the door of master, looking for some kind of out, because the gravity of the power that they possess, the gravity of the original body of work that sits in their gut, that sits in their being, is here to come out. And so while geniuses may suffer in silence and drink themselves to sleep and suffer, they can still go on and will go on and will eventually just live this sort of miserable life that they become accustomed to. Masters, on the other hand, are literally wired and born to bring the work forth, and they cannot live. When I say cannot, I mean literally cannot live on planet Earth in human form without bringing forth the original body of work that they were born with. I want to take this a little deeper so I can go for more clarity. I had a 3-year-old Facebook group that I just shut down last week. And I was doing a Facebook Live in there before I shut it down. And a man who called himself a master came into the group. And because I was sharing a very small fraction of the original body of work that I possess, and he didn't have it, he didn't know, like, he was looking for where this came from. And he asked me, he said, where do you derive your content, your information, your knowledge from? He asked me. And I immediately knew that he was a great or a genius, because masters know that the body of work that they were born with, they've had it since birth, okay? They didn't read it somewhere. They didn't get it from a coach or a book or a program or their parents, or they didn't get it from a place. And so this is such a nuance. This is such a narrow path. Most people don't even care about this nuance. So I share this to really create the great divide between those who are great, those who are geniuses, and those who are masters. That distinction must be there, because that little nuance that's seemingly insignificant can be the thing that will take a master out. Meaning, fall into amnesia. To go out means to fall into amnesia. Many masters have, and I'm going to share my story to show you how this happens, only so you can see yourself in it. I don't think even my story is even significant in the greater scheme of things. And so I'll just segue now into the story. Here I am, obviously, right? I'm in human form, just as you are. And most of us were not lucky enough to be born into families who had the lens and the capacity to see us. Most of our families were normal people who were, living normal lives. And here they are birthing this master who was born to construct a world, who was born to construct a world. Meaning, you were born with a body of work that contains power available to you to then bring out into the world in whatever way you are meant to do that. And so when you're born into a family as this, what happened for me and many masters who I know, well, not many, but the masters who I do know, is we get poisoned with the thinking of the normal people because they don't know what else to give to us. Your mother doesn't know that you're a master. So when you say things that she doesn't understand, when you have intelligence that she hasn't read in a book, that none of her friends understand, that your grandmother, her mother understands, when you know things, she tells you to what? My mother was like, go read a book, change the subject, say subtle things that start to plant the seeds of doubt inside the mortal brain of a master. And then when you get old enough and you start to go out into the world and deal with other people outside of your home, and you say things and you do things and they start to sense that you're not like them, that's often where bullying comes in, because you think differently than they think. You move around your classroom and the playground and outside your home differently than they do. And yet, while they don't have language to understand why you don't belong, why you don't fit there, they sense that there's something about you. So they come after you. They make fun of the things that they can identify, like the way that you talk, the way that you look, how you wear, who you are, etc. And so this poisoning happens over our formative years into our teen years. And if we continue to not have anybody around us who speaks to who we are, we oftentimes will go off on a voyage, right? That voyage can look any number of ways. It doesn't look one singular way. One way is nomads. You become nomadic, right? You live here, you live there, you're looking for a way. You can never root yourself anywhere that feels like home. You go from job to job to job to job. You get fired more times than you can count. You sabotage, you overdrink, you have disastrous relationships, and all the while you know something, but you can't quite name it or put your finger on it because you've been poisoned your whole life to be normal, you're wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. You're foolish. Who do you think you are? Nobody thinks like that. Grow up. Go get a real job. Right? And so you tried that, right? You tried that. Maybe you got married and marriage was a distraction for you. Marriage was a distraction for me. Make no mistake. While I knew there was something for me, because I had no language for it, because I couldn't see clearly. There was nothing that was like concrete, touchable that I could explain to my mother to make myself sound normal. I got married, and yes, I did love, but we all know love is not enough. And so I got married. And so I want to start to talk about now the way the knowing starts to show itself in adult life, because we can come out now. We can declare master now publicly. And we can walk through the door of master, wear the crown of master, speak as master, come down into the original body of work that we were born with and all the power that it possesses and bring it out. We can do that now. We are lucky enough to be born at a time where all things are allowed. My grandmother, not so much. Your grandmother, not so much. Okay? So here I was, this married woman. I got married at, I think, 21, something like that, 2021. And I had the perfect marriage. I had the perfect situation. Great guy. When I say great guy, I mean great fucking guy. Okay, this is the guy that every woman wants. Materially speaking, I had it all. I didn't have to work. If I worked, it was because I wanted to, not because I had to. He financially provided. We lived on a well-manicured cul-de-sac, 2-story, beautiful 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home in Northern California. We had fun. It's like when I think back on it, logically, it made no sense for me to be unhappy there. But this is where knowing, and what I mean by masters literally cannot live. Everybody else can live, like they can suffer for the rest of their lives. They can travel and do fun things and, look okay on the outside. They can do that and go and do it and die, and that's the end of it. Masters cannot do that. They literally cannot live. So here I am married. On the outside, it's perfect. While he's at work, I'm in the kitchen on the floor crying. I don't have language for why I feel the way I feel. There's nothing happening out in my world to be a good reason for me to be unhappy. And yet I know that there is something else for me. I know that there's a life that I'm to be living. I know there's a thing that I'm supposed to be doing. That's what I'm thinking. At this time, I'm 24. I'm like, there's something, I don't know what it is. And it got to the point where I could not breathe. The thing wells up in you and you just cannot move. If you relate to me and you're watching this right now, or you're watching this as a replay, tell me in the comments I relate. So I eventually got a divorce and I began what I said earlier, that nomadic life. So I was living in California. I moved to Houston, Texas. And I started a fashion marketing company. And this was to prove that I could be out there in the world and there is something, I don't know what it is, but there is something that I'm to do and that whole thing. And so masters are speed naturally. Many masters, not all, because it really depends on the depth of the trauma. When I say the trauma, I mean what it was like for you. The strike of in your formative years of you're wrong, you are bad, you don't belong, disappear, keep your mouth shut, you should have never been born. The deeper that strike, the more differently you'll be able to handle the real world when you get into adulthood. So while I didn't receive, I know there are other extremities that I didn't experience, but I definitely experienced my own. And so oftentimes what masters will be able to do, depending on the depth of the traumatic strike that they received in their formative years, they will master this everyday world. Meaning they'll get the highest paid executive job and they'll look really good and they'll be doing really good there. In entrepreneurship, they crush it, but they carve out their own lane. They're always unique in whatever it is that they're doing, and everybody else can see it. And they just see them as these great geniuses who's doing wonderful in their field. All the while, the master behind closed doors is struggling. To them, it's like clockwork. It's easy. They just do it. It's okay. And so that happened for me with this fashion marketing company because I built it up and 4 years later, I sold it. And it happened like that, like the speed of not only building it, but selling it was like that. And then I came into what I didn't know at the time was called the transformation space. Okay. So I got introduced to this world where people actually change on purpose and they invest money to change. And like people are really like doing this live thing and like, right. Still not aware that I'm a master. And so I knew something I want to say right here, okay? Part of what makes the path of master, not mastery, the path of master, so incredibly difficult is because you are required to walk in directions where there are no answers, but you just know. You are required to make decisions where all the evidence, the external evidence, everything that you can see and calculate and add up looks like no. But there's something in you that you just know because masters know. And what happens with that strike in your formative years is that it chips away. It's an attempt to chip away at what you know. I want to say this. Geniuses and greats study to know. Masters know. Geniuses and greats study to know. Masters know. And this is such a subtle, this is like a very fine distinction. That's what makes this such a narrow path. This is what makes this just not for everybody. And it has taken me so much cheap drama in my own life to respect this prickle of nuance. It is the smallest nuance that makes the difference between having a launch and making six figures that's smooth, that's wonderful, where everybody involved wants to be a part again, and you multiply, you go on and do the next one, and it grows and grows and grows in your vein of your signature original work. And when you're not in master, or when you are a master, right? Because what I just described is what greats and geniuses like, right? And you make great results. And this is also before you walk through the door of master. You make great results. You like all the good stuff happens, but there's so much drama with it. It's so hard to do it. There's so much effort in it. Versus when you claim the position of master and you respect that nuance and only work within the realm of that easily disrespectable nuance, that's when you not only create the result, but you quantum leap. People stay because first of all, you've even brought in the right people, because your lens is cloudy before you walk through the door of master. You make poor choices, even when you think you're making really good choices, because in the 3D world, and I know I'm tired of hearing that, but in the world of normal, right here, where this house is, in the world of normal, very good is okay. Great is okay. In the world of master, great and genius is unacceptable. In the world of master, it responds to that subtle nuance because there's such a streak of power there. There's such a force there that you call in the right people who stay. Not call in a team of 10 and you end up with one. Not end up making multiple seven figures and you end up down to $500,000. That's the subtle distinction. So now I want to segue into the scream of ego and the rise of shadow when claiming master. And I'm actually I know I'm here at the selling of the company and coming into the transformation space, but for a minute, I want to take it back to when I was going through even before I filed for divorce, okay? So a year before my divorce was final and before I actually filed, shit wasn't right in the marriage. My husband was starting to get that I was unhappy and it was just not a happy home. And he went and he talked to my mother to tell her about what's going on with Naima. I don't know, please talk to her, that kind of a thing. And so my mother comes to me And my mother, who I cannot talk about what's going on inside of me because I don't have language to explain what's going on inside of me. Because while I know, I don't have any like plan. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know. I just know. Okay. So she comes to me and she's like, Naima, I'll make up his name, Jason. Okay. So Jason says to me this and this, and this is happening, and right. And she says to me, and I remember this, I don't remember verbatim, but she used an analogy. She said, Naima, your marriage is a boat, and there are holes in your boat right now, and you need to plug up those holes. You have a great husband. You have a great life. I mean, I was in a situation where my ex-husband was basically just waiting for me to give birth to children. Can you relate? Can you relate to being in a situation where everything on the outside is perfect, but you know that's not the place for you? And it's so hard to leave something that's so safe and normal and acceptable and celebrated and, you know? And I remember thinking at that time, so here's the ego starts to, because I knew, right? But my ego, the scream of the ego, this has been a long time coming for me. This is not new, okay? The scream of the ego, Naima, why would you leave something so perfect? Like, your guy is perfect. You guys have great sex. He's ready to be an awesome father. Like, my ex-husband was dying to be a dad. Like, he was one of those kind of men. He gives you everything you want. You guys have a good time. You travel. You eat good. You have good parties with friends. Your home is well manicured. You live on a cul-de-sac in the suburbs. You have money. You're young. You have your degree. Like, on the outside, like, that's what the ego does. That's the scream. But this was like scream, scream, scream. Then, as I tried to ignore it, and here I was on the kitchen floor, like, cooking, crying, because I know this is not my life. Crying, scream of the ego, scream, 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 scream. Because if you're crying and you're sad, that must be wrong. Like, you must be going in the wrong, to want to go in this direction where there's no plan or evidence. And yet you're supposed to follow that because you just know. And oh, you're 24 on top of that. You don't even know what's going on in the real world. Girl, you better make that marriage work. This is an example of the scream of the ego. And that's just one. I mean, like, right? I could go on forever, but I'll keep it moving. So then here, boom, fast forward to me selling the company. Before I sold the company, the ego screamed again. And I'm going to talk about shadow in a minute, because shadow is a totally different thing from ego. And I'm going to break down the difference between shadow and ego, okay? When it was time for me to sell my company, it was my only source of income at the time. That disrespectable nuance is demanding. That little slither right there of masterhood. This is for the few, not for the many. This is for the few, not for the many. Masterhood is demanding, and it will call you. If you're a true master, it will call and call at different times in your life. It will call and call and call and call. So here I am with this company. It's my only source of income. And I get the hit to sell the company. Now, where does this even come from? This is the call. Okay, so here goes the ego. This is your only source of income. That would be foolish to sell the company. I mean, like, what are you going to do? Help people? Like, help people how? Like, what are you doing? Like, this is fine. Like, you're having fun. I was having a lot of fun. This is fun. Like, you're helping people. And I had my company cater to emerging fashion and beauty brands. And I have a personal affinity for the underdog. So my company was like, to me, it was like, this is my purpose. I'm having fun. I'm making money. I'm traveling all over because we were having events in California and New York and Texas. You're having fun, Naima. Why would you do that? Like, here's how the ego screams when the door of masterhood presents itself. Why would you do that? Da, 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 da. Again, I walked through the door. Now, I know I'm making this sound really easy. In this instance, it was relatively easy. But once I got to the other side, it was like, fuck, shit, holy shit. Okay? And I'm going to fast forward this to see the different levels of how this looks, okay? So all I did was I picked up the phone. I said, okay, I'm going to sell this company. Like, it was kind of swift in that kind of a way. Remember, masters or speed. I called 3 clients. One of them is like, okay, I'll call you back in 30, 45 minutes. She calls me back and she's like, okay, I'm going to buy the company. Within 2 weeks, she bought the company. Done deal. 2-3 weeks. Done deal. Now here I am, incomeless. All I know is I want to help myself at a deeper level. I want to help myself at a deeper level, and I want to help other people. That's all I got. I don't know anything about the transformation space at this time. I don't know anything about coaching and videos, none of that. There's nobody in my world talking about this. I know nothing of this. So suddenly I get this impulse to want to start creating video, which when I think about it now, it's incredibly odd because like right now video is normal. Everybody's doing it. Back then, 2011, nobody was doing video in my world, okay? So I had to get this impulse to start doing video. And here is the rise of shadow. Here is the rise of shadow. So I go to Target. This is how like dated this is. I know 2011 is not that long ago, but I actually, like, nobody buys a camera unless you're like in the world of cameras and photography like that. I went to Target and bought an actual camera to do video. Bought a video, got my stand, brought it home, took it out the box, set everything up. Shadow, 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 shadow and ego. You have nothing to say. Nobody cares anything about what you have to say. Who are you talking to anyway? Video, who is watching video? Then here's shadow. Oh, you want to be a badass, huh? Oh, you want to rule the fucking world, don't you? You want to own all of this shit because you the black fucking queen that the world doesn't know it's missing out on, do you? Oh my God. You know what I did? I took all the equipment and put it in the closet. I said, oh no, this is not about to happen. I don't know where I got this idea, but it's not happening. 2 months, it sits in the closet. Now I want to reiterate, geniuses and greats and all those other people, they will leave that shit there or sort of half-ass it or find something else to do that seems a little more, Remember, masters cannot live. I'm telling you, for those 2 months, I was absolutely miserable. I'd be at Starbucks trying to have a normal conversation with another human being, and all I could think was, you loser, you know you're supposed to be doing video. You know you have that equipment at home. Like, I could be sitting down. I could be going for a walk. I could be eating. And it's just like, like that. So finally, with all of my ego, and I know nothing of ego and shadow at the time. I only know this in retrospect. I know nothing of it at the time. There's no, like how you can watch me right now and feel some kind of relief maybe or some confirmation. I had none of that. So because the intensity of the pull, remember I told you your original body of work pulls you. It cares nothing about fear. It doesn't care about shadow. It doesn't care about ego. It doesn't care, like it is bigger than all of that. I finally opened up the camera, put up the stand that you put the camera on, sat on the floor because part of me was like still collapsing inside of myself. Sat on the floor, hit the record button, and for however many minutes sat there and just talked about how terrified I was to come onto camera, what it took for me to come on the camera. That was it. And I uploaded that video May 11, 2011. May 8th or May 11th of 2011. And the level of effort and exhaustion that it took for me, and I'm sharing this with you so you can see what it's going to take for you to come into the world of master. Because see, when you come into the world of master, this kind of intensity that I'm talking about right now doesn't happen like this. On the other side of master, to even get remotely close to your original body of working and bringing it out feels like a fucking drain. It's exhausting. You got to like take a nap before, you got to take a nap after, you got to ready yourself. It's and I know because I've done that. When you walk through the door of master, it is. It just is. And so I knew, and see, this is, it's a long time coming, darling. I knew because of the thickness and the murkiness. Let me pause right here the difference between ego and shadow. Ego is aggressively chatty. It's the matrix. It's everywhere all the time. This is why it's so hard to beat it by just being like, okay, I'm not letting my ego control me anymore. Like in a simple kind of way like that. It's everywhere all the time. It's in when you say, okay, I'm going to do this. And then you, right after you like, because your stream of knowing for as a master, it works like this. It just streams. It just knows. There's no like, there's none of that in the stream of knowing. It just goes like this forever and ever and ever. And what happens is because you got a mortal brain and because you were conditioned to, be careful and who you are. When you say, okay, I'm going to do this from your stream of knowing, and then your brain goes, well, what would she do? Or is that a good idea? Like that instantly takes you out of the stream of this. So that's how you know it's ego. It's like, it's a chatty, it's like a continuous stream of chatter. It's chatter. It yells. But when it yells, it yells like in a motherfucker kind of way, right? Because your knowing will yell too, but it'll be like, Naima, or whatever your name is. Naima, like attention. It'll be like, go this way. It'll be like, say that. Don't do that. And it'll be quick. And it won't have any murkiness. Now here's shadow. Shadow is murky. Shadow is dense. Shadow is that's what it is, okay? And so let me take it back to the video and connect it because I just shared that so I can do the distinction. So when I came and I started doing video, and there was the feeling that of what it took for me to come out onto the camera, like that the pull. First of all, the pull of me wanting to do it, and then everything in between that was stopping me from getting present to doing it. So it was like the pull from the force field that has this desire to come out. It's less of a desire, more of a demand. It just like that, right? Has its own pull. And then in between is all the shadow stuff that's murky and dense, and you just cannot see, but it's a different kind of cannot see. And this is the nuance of master. God, this video could get very long if I got into every nuance, and I'm not going to do that. Okay, so I could feel that there was this murky, heavy murkiness. That's another thing, shadow is, it's heavy. That was going to get in the way if I tried to just sort of kind of do video. So I made the commitment to do video 3 times a week, every week, until. I didn't have a deadline, just until. So I did that. And before you knew it, and when I say I did it, no matter how my hair looked, no matter how I felt, boom, 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 I did my videos. So I have 2 different YouTube. So the point is, I went on to remember, masters of speed, I quickly alchemized all that by just repetition. Now here we go, this distinction between great and master. In the world of great, that is enough, what I just described. Repetition is enough to beat to a great enough degree resistance and shadow and ego, like just repetition, right? Don't we get taught that in this everyday world? Just repeat. You know, how do you build up a new habit? 21 days, 30 days, right? In the world of master, repetition only to you means quickening to the door of death, the door of masterhood, really. When I say door of death, I mean the death of this game of like mastering 3D, where you get really good at whatever good is in your world. That whether that's the multiple six-figure career or business, whether that right, you get really good, and to everybody else, you look successful. Like me with the marriage, like me with the seven-figure coaching business. To everybody else, you look successful, but to you, and the demand of masterhood calls for something more. And what it calls for is for you to come into the narrow path, that easily disrespectable stream that I keep referring to. The part of you that absolutely knows, that possesses zero doubt. The part of you that lives in the frequency of the original body of work that you were born with. You're still human, so you're still gonna have ego shit and shadow shit but you see it and you alchemize that shit on contact. It's like you swallow it, right? It's like I shared a post the other day about it comes and you're just like, why bother? You talk to it like that, like, why bother, right? And then other smaller amounts of, other smaller amounts of shadow, you, oh, that's good. Look at that. Hey. Other smaller amounts of shadow don't even touch you because of the level of masterhood that you've stepped into. So let me go back to my notes. I want to make sure I'm not forgetting anything in particular. I got a lot of notes here, but I'm not going to go into a lot of that. So, what I invite you to do is, as a master, I don't typically comment on, like, I might do like a "you're beautiful" post or on other people's posts, like, you know, that simple, right? But when it comes to this kind of material, and because what I'm speaking of is so original, especially if you have the lens to see accurately, this is not something I would likely comment on a Facebook feed. Okay, so I know that's odd that here I am doing a Facebook Live, and yet I wouldn't comment. I would likely not comment on another master's Facebook Live. What I would do is I would inbox her or him. That's what I would do. That's just how I roll. And so I invite you, if you are a master watching me right now and you are at that place, and I want to reiterate this and be really clear. So you've already walked through the door of master, and only you can answer that. That's not for me to decide, even though I choose whether or not I allow you into my field because that's necessary. And then there's a readiness to walk through the door and wanting to be in community with other folks who have walked through the door, because you recognize that to walk through the door, and you just know this, to walk through the door alone and then be on the other side alone, the first thing I was going to say is not very smart. But even greater, that being in the presence of fellow masters who have walked through the door, where it's decidedly and on purpose, with high thoughts, birthing impossible dreams, bringing forth their original body of work, you recognize you recognize. So I invite you to inbox me, because for 2020, I have a round table. I'm gathering masters for a round table who are walking the narrow path, who respect that subtle nuance that the majority of people do not, who have such high standards and recognize that their position of master requires that they genuinely mastermind with masters, not just get with a bunch of entrepreneurs who are passionate and want to travel and brainstorm, because that's what most people are doing when they say masterminding. They mean they're brainstorming and they are having a good time together, which is good. And they are talking about ideas and resources, which is fine and good and normal, very good. I just want to be clear. Masters, on the other hand, are sitting with work, and only masters know this, that must come out or else they will die. And so the level of refinement, the level of narrowness that they must live, meaning in the way that they care for their body and the way that they tend to their minds and the language that we speak, all those subtle nuances that make the difference between success with a lot of efforting and success with greater ease, that distinction. The difference between getting close to your original body of work and actually in the vein of your original work, that fine distinction. Then when those minds come together, that is masterminding. And then what we do in masterminding is we harness, this is preaching to the choir now, right? We harness the power of that intelligence and that force field and cause a quickening, because in the birthing of impossible dreams that we expect to see in some kind of form in our lifetime, impossible dreams that we expect to see in some kind of form in our lifetime, because it's going to carry out, right, beyond our lifetime, but to see it in some kind of form in our lifetime, and recognizing that that's not going to happen by hanging out with just great people. You may have great people on your team eventually in some capacity, but the core of it all requires masterminding. So I invite you to inbox me if you are either already a master or you are ready to walk through the door of master. Wear that hat of master. Bring your original body of work to the world and have it do whatever it is that it's supposed to do. Okay? And I want to end with this because I love it so very, very much. What I'm about to read speaks to the nuance, that easily disrespectable nuance that most people will disregard. It's insignificant, doesn't matter. This is good enough, even excellent. This is great. Like, that's good enough over there for the greats and the geniuses. For masters, it is not enough. So as I read this, to me, at a core level, this speaks to that nuance and its necessity, the necessity of your original body of work to come out through you in your lifetime. Unless it comes bursting out of you in spite of everything, don't do it. Unless it comes unasked out of your heart and your mind and your gut, like comes out, nobody even asked you, and here you are bringing this. Unless it comes out like this, don't do it. Unless it comes out of your soul like a rocket, don't do it. Unless being still would drive you to madness or suicide or murder, I'm getting chills. don't do it. So if you just are passionate about it, passion, everybody's passionate. Unless the sun inside you is burning your gut, don't do it. When it is truly time, and I'll add, if you truly know that you're a master, and if you have been chosen, and if you know you are a master, then yes, you are chosen. It will do it by itself. And it will keep on doing it until you die or it dies in you. There is no other way, and there never was.